Hey. Thank you for coming to this incredibly historic event, the formation of the Addison Central School District Board. There were many people that made tonight possible, and I could stand up here for probably 2 hours and list the number of people, not just in the past couple of years, but going back, who have been talking about, working on, and moving forward, working together as communities with one aim, which is to provide the best possible experiences for our kids in Addison Central. The work that all of you have done over the many, many years has resulted in what you see here, which is our new governing body. This is an incredibly exciting moment, and I want to take a moment to recognize some of the people that made this possible. First, I'd like to recognize Secretary of Education Rebecca Holcomb, who's here with us tonight. Former Governor Jim Douglas. Members of our elected Unified District. From Bridport, Suzanne Buck. From Cornwall, Peter Conlin. From Middlebury, Jason Duquette Hoffman, Ruth Hardy, Victoria Jetty, Lorraine Morse, Steve Orzek, and J.P. Reese. From Ripton, Perry Hansen. Salisbury, Jennifer Newseeder. Shoreham, Nick Costin, and Weybridge, Chris Eaton. I'd also like to recognize our current ACSU boards who did much of the work leading up to tonight. From Bridport, Keith Greer, Suzanne Buck, Paul Plouffe, Brian DeForge, and Justin Markowski. From Cornwall, Sarah Kemp, Christy Tolgesi, Cindy Pete, Maureen Detman, and Gabe Hamilton. From Mary Hogan, Ruth Hardy, Lorraine Morse, Amy Graham, Leslie Bodette, Jason Duquette Hoffman, Victoria Jetty, and Elena Roscoe Hammond. From Ripton, Carol Ford, Perry Hansen, Laura McIntosh, Brian Alexander, and Giles Hoyler. From Salisbury, John Newseeder, Gary Brown, Tim Ryan, Sheila Conroy, and Catherine Schloff. From Shoreham, Dee Dee Flagg, Ruth Bernstein, Christine Gibson, Tanya Scuteri, and Lance Wood. From Weybridge, Chris Eaton, Eric Bowdish, Justin Perdue, Jamie Northrup, and Jennifer Richmond. And from UD3, Peter Conlin, J.P. Reese, Lorraine Morse, Michelle Bayless, Nick Costin, Laura Lass, Devin McLaughlin, Steve Orzek, Mark Perrin, Bob Ritter, Rick Scott, Jerry Shedd, and Allison Stenger. And finally, I would like to recognize the Charter Committee. The Charter Committee was responsible for putting together the articles that are the basis of the new board. On the Charter Committee were Ruth Bernstein, Suzanne Buck, Maureen Detman, Jason Duquette Hoffman, Chris Eaton, Perry Hansen, Ruth Hardy, Devin McLaughlin, Lorraine Morse, Tim Ryan, and Barbara Saunders. And with that, I will turn it over to Secretary Holcomb.
Good evening. I have the tremendous pleasure of opening this meeting. So with that, I'm going to read the initial opening. The legal voters of the Addison Central School District, comprising the voters of the towns of Bridport, Cornwall, Middlebury, Ripton, Salisbury, Shoreham, and Weybridge have been notified and warned to meet at Middlebury Union High School on June 22, 2016, in the auditorium of said school at 6 p.m. to take action on the warned articles. I declare that the organizational meeting of the Addison Central School District is opened at 6:05 p.m. And I'd like to invite Nick Beauchamp, who is a recent graduate of Middlebury Union High School and possibly a future board member, to come and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Nick. So to begin, I'd like to review the voting procedures. To vote on the articles from the warning, you must be a registered voter in the town of Bridport, Cornwall, Middlebury, Ripton, Salisbury, Shoreham, or Weybridge, and you must have passed through the checklist at the entrance. There, your name was checked against the list of legal voters in each town, and you would have received a voting ballot that you will show during a voice vote from the floor, or you will deposit it at the ballot box if a vote by paper ballot is called. If a paper vote is requested, you will be given instructions on that procedure at that time. Non-residents and unregistered voters may not vote, but they may be allowed to speak with the approval of 2/3 of the assembly. During a voice vote, please remain silent. Additionally, you may not raise your hands or stand if a physical count is required. We appreciate your cooperation with this. Minutes are being recorded for this meeting. All motions, remarks, and discussion should be addressed to the moderator. Anyone wishing to address the assembly or anyone responding to questions from the floor must state his or her full name and speak so that the comments may be heard by the entire assembly. With that, I'd like to introduce and swear in the new elected board members for the Unified Union School District. So I'm going to ask the members to stand as I say your name, and please raise your right hand. Suzanne Buck of Bridport, Peter Conlon of Cornwall, Jason Duquette Hoffman, Ruth Hardy, Victoria Jetty, Lorraine Morris, Steve Orzak, J.P. Reese of Middlebury, Perry Hansen of Ripton, Jennifer Newceder of Salisbury, Nick Cosden of Shoreham, and Chris Eaton of Weybridge. So I will read this in pieces and you repeat after me. I do solemnly affirm that I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont.
That I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont.
And that I will not directly or indirectly do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution or government thereof. Under the pains and penalties of perjury. And now for the affirmation of office. I do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of Director for the Addison Central School District. And will therein do equal right and justice to all persons. To the best of my judgment and ability. According to law. Under the pains and penalties of perjury. I think you can all give your new board a round of applause. So with that, may I give my remarks? Okay. It's truly a privilege and a pleasure to be here and to recognize the tremendous work that has been done by this community. And one of the exciting things about having my job is I get to travel over the state and visit communities all over Vermont, and each of them is special in a different way. But it is a pleasure to come to these meetings because it's a chance to recognize the incredible effort and the incredible initiative by so many community members over a prolonged period of time on behalf of their children. Sometimes these meetings are a little awkward. It's like the beginning of a marriage. A couple months ago, your individual communities all overwhelmingly voted, I do. We were cracking a joke about this earlier. And now the honeymoon's over. And now you're figuring out how you'll work as partners when you move in together under one roof. And this meeting is your organizational meeting when you begin to lay the ground rules for how you'll work together as a new unified family, if you will. I know some of you might be looking sideways in a metaphorical way to see who's trying to grab that top sock drawer. I know that some of you may be trying to make sure no one's taking more than their share of the closet. This is part of the process. And I say that because others of you are also eager to get working shoulder to shoulder on some of the challenges that you've been trying to grapple with individually, and you're looking forward to working together shoulder to shoulder with your colleagues to try to make headway on some of those hard problems that you haven't been able to solve. And that's what this is about. It's that balancing of individual interests and shared interests. And these negotiations are part and parcel of any good partnership. And that's what you're just beginning. And I think it's important to remember that as you start, because that's the important work that you're going to do. This balancing of individual and shared interests is really embodied in our state motto, freedom and unity, which really captures the challenge we have to grapple with every day when we take care of our children in our school systems at every level. We have to figure out how to balance our yearning for individual self-determination, whether it's at the town level or at the school level, with our shared interests and our shared commitments and our sense of public common good. I could quote Thomas Chittenden, our first governor, but since I'm an educator, I'm actually going to quote Dorothy Canfield Fisher, who in addition to receiving an honorary degree from your own college here, Middlebury College, was a noted advocate for civil rights and a well-recognized author and educational reformer, and whose name is very well known by many of your children, because every year your 4th and 8th graders vote on the books that should receive the Dorothy Canfield Fisher Award. So your students could probably tell you this. But she wrote that the Vermont idea grapples energetically with the basic problem of human conduct, which is how to reconcile the needs of the group, of which every man or woman is a member, with the craving for individual freedom to be what he really is. And that's what you're beginning today. Communities like yours invest both their dollars and their time in our schools because you know the future welfare of our shared children and the vibrancy of our shared communities depends on it. We have to educate every single individual child well, and for the sake of our public good, we have to do it equitably, and that's a goal that we've been striving towards in Vermont. This is our public trust. Our teachers work very hard to support our children, and our school boards and our communities and our parents demonstrate their commitment at school meetings every year. But at the same time, as you've heard and as you've discussed over the last several months, we're in a period of great change in Vermont. We've had declining enrollment statewide, including your own decline of about 26% over the last 20 years here in Addison Central. And that's really challenged our ability to provide greater opportunities for our children. And in many areas, it's really eroded the equity of those opportunities for children in different communities based on where they happen to live. At the same time, we also know that we're dealing with larger economic and technological changes that in turn drive changes in what and how our schools teach and what our students need to learn. In an age where every job that can be done by a machine is done by a machine, all of our children have to be educated to be creative and entrepreneurial so that they can do the work that machines can't do. This is challenging our schools. It is challenging our teachers in profound ways that they are eager to embrace. But it really is challenging our schools to rethink not only what they teach, but how they teach. And they cannot do it without our shared support. And 30 years ago, we didn't expect all of our students to graduate, let alone go to college. Now we not only expect them to graduate, we expect them to leave school with high levels of skill and a great capacity to reason and problem solve. So I leave you with this thought. Your schools are better than they've ever been. They really and truly are. But we also know that we need them to do even better. And in order to do so, we need our boards freed from the mundane to focus on the larger, all-important strategic challenges that you face ahead. You need to be addressing the challenges related to how you will provide high-quality, equitable, and responsive education into the future, even as we're in a time of tight pocketbooks and declining enrollments. And that's what's exciting about where you are today. For this, we have to roll up our sleeves, and we have to work together in unity on these shared goals. In the face of these challenges, communities like yours realize that you might actually have more power working side by side on behalf of your shared children. And you have a greater chance of continuing support for your community schools. You've chosen to work together with your neighbors to create better opportunities for your children than any of you could have done on your own. At one of the regional VSBA meetings that we had last fall, a board member came up to me and he shared a concern he had about unifying, as you have done. And he explained to me that in his community's little school, they had a lawnmower. It was a ride-on lawnmower, pretty fancy. He was pretty proud of it. And one of the board members had mowed the grass around the school for years. And his concern was that in a unified system, he wondered, who would own and drive that mower? And I share that with you because it's a metaphor. It's a pretty good metaphor for where you are. I love that anecdote because it speaks to so much of what makes Vermont schools special. This board member who was worried about who would drive his mower felt about his schools as many of us feel about our homes. He was worried about sharing because of his fear that unifying might erode his freedom to really mow his lawn, decide what paint, or really be deeply engaged in a personal way with his own school community. This is an example, it's funny, but it's an example of the work you have ahead. We know that the best decisions about how you will govern your schools as you move forward as a unified board and how you will educate your children are rooted in your local decisions about your local values and your local preferences and priorities. You will need to find ways to maintain the tight ties and the tight engagement that make your current communities feel so passionate about your schools, even as you help them to think as a slightly larger community. At the same time, you need to find common purpose and unity because you know that no matter how you deliver it, the education of your public is the one purpose that touches all of you, whether you are taxpayers, parents, business owners, or students. And as you work together as a larger community, you are building the relationships and the institutions and shared purpose that will pave the way, not just for Addison Central School District, but for Addison County as well. So thank you for all your dedication, for all your service to your schools, and most importantly to all of our children in Vermont. I am deeply impressed and in awe of the tremendous work you've done over the last months, and so proud to be here to celebrate it today. With that, I'd like to get on to the business portion of the meeting, and I'll begin with the first article, Article 1, which is to elect a temporary presiding officer and clerk from among the qualified voters. So at this point, nominations are now in order for someone to serve as a temporary presiding officer. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Jim Douglas.
Okay, we have a nomination of Jim Douglas. Are there any other nominations? Jim Douglas's name has been placed in nomination. Hearing no other nominations, nominations are closed. All in favor of electing Jim Douglas as your temporary presiding officer, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. It's unanimous. You have elected Jim Douglas as your temporary presiding officer. And if Jim Douglas could come up, I will. Let me do the clerk first, I think you wanted me to do. Oh, you'll take over. Come on up and you can take.
Yeah.
It's actually better because I'm a little loose with the rules and it's better to have an expert in here. What I'd like to do now is swear you in as the temporary officer. I left the thing. Here it is. I think I lost my. Here we go. So if you could repeat after me. I, Jim Douglas, do solemnly affirm that I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont.
That I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont.
And that I will not directly or indirectly do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution or government thereof, under the pains and penalties of perjury. Now the affirmation of office. I, Jim Douglas, do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of temporary clerk for the Addison Central School District.
Temporary moderator for the Addison Central School District.
And will therein, see, it's a good reason we have them, and will therein do equal right and justice to all persons.
And will therein do equal right and justice to all persons.
To the best of my judgment and ability.
To the best of my judgment and ability.
According to law.
According to law.
Under the pains and penalties of perjury.
Under the pains and penalties of perjury.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I turn it over to you at this point.
Well, thanks. Let's all thank Secretary Holcomb for being with us at our opening meeting. We appreciate it. We'll do our best to make the marriage work as you exhort us and ensure the greatest opportunity possible for success of the students of our district. So thank you for gracing us with your presence this evening. Our next responsibility under Article 1 is to elect a temporary clerk from among the voters of the district. Is there a nomination for temporary clerk?
I nominate Linda Barrett of Bridport.
Peter nominates Linda Barrett of Bridport to serve as temporary clerk. Are there any other nominations? If not, is there a motion to close the nominations and cast a single ballot for Linda Barrett for temporary clerk? So moved. Seconded. Gary? All in favor of closing nominations and casting a single ballot for Linda Barrett for clerk, temporary clerk, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we've elected Linda as our temporary clerk. You can come forward, Linda, if you like, and they got a nice table there for you. Pick any of the 3 seats. Article 2, to adopt Robert's Rules of Order or other rules to govern the parliamentary procedures of this and subsequent meetings of the Addison Central School District. What's your pleasure regarding Article 2? Move that we adopt Robert's Rules of Order. I seconded. Any discussion on that motion? If not, all in favor of adopting Robert's Rules of Order to govern our proceedings signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we've adopted Robert's Rules of Order. It's good, since those are the ones I brought with me today. The Article 3, to elect the following officers to serve from their election and qualification for a term of 1 year or until their successors have been elected and qualified. First is to elect a moderator to serve during the ensuing year, and to preside over that election, I'd like to invite Linda to come forward and handle that responsibility.
Do I hear any nominations for moderator?
I nominate Jim Douglas.
Any further nominations? Do I hear a motion to close nominations? Okay, thank you both. So we'll cast 1 ballot for Jim Douglas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? You're it, Jim.
Does seem a little cumbersome, but this is what our lawmakers hath wrought, so we'll follow the procedure. And we'll now reciprocate, because our responsibility is to elect a clerk for a term of 1 year or until his or her successor is duly elected and qualified. Is there a nomination for clerk of the district for the ensuing year? Suzanne nominates Linda. Is there a second? And we'll, what you really want to do is make a motion to close nominations and cast a single ballot for Linda. And that will be seconded. John, you seconded. It's like an auction, sort of phantom motions and second. All in favor of electing Linda to serve as clerk for the ensuing year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we've elected Linda to serve in this role. Her duties as acting clerk having been dispatched fairly expeditiously. Our next responsibility is to elect a treasurer to serve for the ensuing year or until his or her successor is elected and qualified. Are there nominations for treasurer of the school district? We have a nomination of Michelle Warren, and it is duly seconded. I didn't ask Linda if we should be recording who makes all the motions and second them. Is that your custom?
That would be nice, so I could note the people who are making these motions, that lady in the audience. Thank you.
Well, I've been delinquent in getting them earlier on here, so If you see your names in the minutes as having made a motion, I hope you're okay. Excuse me, Lorraine. We have Michelle Warren nominated for treasurer. Are there other nominations for district treasurer?
Nominate Shane Keene.
Lorraine nominates Shane Keene. Is there a second? Seconded by... Are there further nominations for treasurer of the district? Lorraine nominates Jane Beck. Is there a second to that nomination?
Second.
Seconded by JP.
JP.
Are there other nominations for district treasurer? Any other nominations? If not, the chair will declare the nominations closed. We'll proceed to elect the treasurer by ballot. You each were presented a brightly colored document on the way in. Now would be the time to fill in one of the circles for someone for the position of treasurer, and to come forward and deposit it in the ballot box, which is on the stage. And that, of course, applies to all the voters on stage and elsewhere.
Can that be a table?
Table 10.
We won't tell anyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. We're glad to be of use.
We're just talking about that.
one.
Do you want to vote?
I haven't actually registered.
I
just turned 18
I just had that conversation with them.
Yeah.
Promise me.
It's been a week.
I know, but it's important. The voice.
Big one's not made up. The corners, pro patria
Already had a few months.
He'll just say, I can't help himself.
He's 15 to die. I think it was T.S. Eliot.
Fallen board member, Josh. Better job.
Every eligible voter cast a ballot? And we'll declare the ballot box closed, and I'll ask our newly elected clerk, Linda Barrett, and our Middlebury town clerk, Ann Webster, to prepare to count. And we'll need to await the return of the report of the tellers. The statute provides that a majority is required, so if no candidate has a majority, we'll proceed to a subsequent ballot. So we'll see what the results show. In the meantime, are there any announcements or comments that anyone from the district would like to make while we have time, or do you want to let people go get coffee? That's probably not a good idea.
I could just
Peter?
mention,
Sure.
so we are hoping afterwards, after the meeting concludes, that everyone stays. There's a cake and refreshments outside, and would love to spend time talking with all of you and sharing some time together. So please stick around after the meeting right out here, and that's all I've got.
John Barstow. Thank you. Yeah, I guess so.
Since we're killing time, I'd like to just raise the point that Article 2 adopts Robert's Rules of Order or other rules of order.
Yeah.
So that's open to, I'm just curious about an article that's that open-ended. Do you have any comments on that?
I wouldn't want
Other
to.
rules of order that,
Wouldn't want to assume what was in the minds of the General Assembly when they ordained that, but there are other rules. As you know, the legislature uses a manual called Mason's Rules, and the national political conventions use the rules of the U.S. House of Representatives for their deliberations, so there are alternatives, and they've given the districts the option of choosing something different, but I'd be surprised if any have.
As would I. Thank you.
Sure.
So can I ask a question under the existing rules, whatever they may be, whether you're able to go forward with consideration of the next article and put this article on hold while ballots are being counted?
Well, one of the provisions is authorization to suspend rules by a 2/3 vote. And so what we could do is I could ask if there's any objection to proceeding to consider subsequent articles, which are fairly perfunctory, and then return to the results of the vote. Unless you have a report? Not yet?
The key that we have doesn't open our ballot.
Oh, we're going to have time for a lot of announcements. Well, your suggestion is timely. Is there any objection to proceeding to consider subsequent articles while we await the report of the tellers?
No objection.
I don't hear any, so let's proceed to Article 5, which is to establish a date. You're right. Well, I mean, would the results of the vote affect your consideration of Article 4? Probably not. No. Okay. All right. Article 4, to determine and approve compensation, if any, to be paid the district officers. Is there a motion to recommend compensation for the district clerk?
I move that we pay the clerk $500.
Suzanne Buck moves that we pay the clerk $500 per year.
Second.
Seconded by Steve? Peter.
I have a point of discussion.
Oh, sure.
Since the appointment of the treasurer this year is taking place at the end of June, and a new treasurer may be appointed in February, should this be saying for a year, or should it just be saying until the next annual meeting?
It says election, until the election.
So it will be $500 until February, and then at $500 for a full year is my question. So $500 for the short year and $500 for the long year. Okay.
Well, the chair is confused now. Didn't we elect someone for a fiscal year until July 1st of 2017? So would someone elected in February, if it's someone different, take office immediately, or not until the new fiscal year? I'm not sure.
These officer elections are usually at the annual meeting.
Right.
Determine the date for it, but traditionally at the end of February.
But the treasurer position goes through the fiscal year usually, which is the end of June, so
The motion on the floor right now is clerk.
it's just
Right,
for the clerk.
clerk.
Yeah. Our superintendent did some research on this. Can we ask him for what he found?
So the election would take place, assuming that the annual meeting date is set in February. The election would happen then. But for treasurer,
Maybe move that mic a little closer. Thanks.
So the term of treasurer does run a fiscal year, so that would run through. So the transition would happen if there was someone elected at the annual meeting. That would then begin in the following fiscal year. That's my understanding.
So the term of office is July 1 to June 30, regardless of when the election is. That may be a difference from what you've been accustomed to, but that's apparently the understanding of the new order of things. Yes, ma'am?
What, are we talking about only the treasurer or the moderator, clerk, and treasurer?
We just elected all three officers for fiscal year terms that will end June 30.
Okay, so but every discussion was about treasurer.
Well, yeah, we should focus a little more. We're talking about compensation for the clerk right now.
I thought you were just talking about the treasurer.
Well, we kind of drifted, I think. So, yes, ma'am.
The answer to that, I think, is that each school district pays their treasurer independently. So, for example, UD3 has a treasurer that comes out of the UD3 budget. ID4 has a treasurer that comes out of the ID4 budget.
But the clerks is the question. Are they currently paid?
Are they currently paid out of the ACSD? Is the clerk?
It's currently some of the clerk positions are currently compensated, yes. Yep.
Do we know how much time this entails?
The $500 is, I would say, an average across the state. The position itself is more or less unchanged in the Unified District, so it's a similar workload to the amount that we're currently paying for the same position.
So, but the clerk, what does the clerk do other than run the annual meetings?
There's a detailed list on the back of your warning.
The question, yes, go right ahead.
Before we actually vote on that, I have a question that has to do with Article 4, 6, and 7, which is where is that money coming from for the next year?
For the funds, later on in the warning tonight, you'll be approving or funds to allow this board to borrow funds. We are receiving a facilitation grant from the state as part of the unified merger, so that $150,000 will be accessible by the new unified board.
So starting July 1st, that money is available?
Yep.
Any other discussion? The question is on the motion to approve a salary of $500 for the clerk. Ready for that question? If so, all in favor of approving the salary, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we've approved the clerk's salary for the ensuing year. Next, we'll turn to proposed compensation for the treasurer. Is there a motion on that topic?
I move that we pay the Addison Central School District treasurer $1,000 until July 1 of 2017, at which point the compensation would increase to $5,000 as recommended by Dr. Burrows.
Suzanne moves that the district treasurer be paid a salary of $1,000 for the coming fiscal year until July 1st, 2017, and a salary of $5,000 annually thereafter. Or perhaps it's set every year, I'm not sure. But for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017. So the motion is $1,000 for this coming transition year and then a $5,000 annual salary beginning July 1st, 2017. Is there a second to that motion? Seconded? Discussion?
Why is there such a radical increase?
Because the workload changes.
Why the difference? Peter Conlon?
It's actually a radical decrease to start off with, largely because this district board and its fiscal responsibilities begin next July. So the duties of the treasurer will be far less for the remainder of this fiscal year, or for this next fiscal year, than it will be for the year after, because we have our current treasurers in place as well.
So the current treasurers are going to work through to July 1st, 2017. So
Yes.
we'll have like all the ones that are currently in place on one more.
Yeah.
Jason?
Just a question on this. I'm not sure that we typically would set the following year salary for a treasurer. I believe that's set every annual meeting. So I think we would need to ask the question for this coming year. So the year starting July 1, 2016 to June 30th, 2017. And then the 2017 fiscal year we would set at the next annual meeting in February. It's typically how we've done it. So I don't know.
Move to amend the motion to just be this year's salary.
Chris Eaton moves to amend the motion by deleting the reference to the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017, and leaving the $1,000 proposed salary for the coming fiscal year. And that proposed amendment was seconded. Is there discussion on the amendment, which is to take out the $5,000 for the following year and make it only the $1,000 for next year? And just discussion on that proposed amendment? If not, yes, sir.
I think we could delay this until the new treasurer is appointed, in case that person has some comment.
Well, we have a motion to amend the article right now that's certainly in order. Other discussion on it? Further discussion on the proposed amendment, which is to eliminate the second year compensation. If not, all in favor of the proposed amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and you've approved the amendment. Now the question is on the motion as amended, which is to approve a salary of $1,000 for the next fiscal year, beginning in just a week and a half for the treasurer, period. Is there discussion on that motion? Not, are you ready for the question? So, all in favor of approving the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and you've approved compensation for the treasurer for the coming fiscal year of $1,000. Article 5, to establish the date of the annual meeting. What's your pleasure regarding Article 5?
I would move that we set the date of the annual meeting to be the Tuesday before town meeting.
Peter moves that the date of the annual meeting be the Tuesday prior to town meeting day. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by somebody. Somebody who was near a mic. Steve, sorry. Discussion on the motion? Ma'am?
Is there any reason that it actually shouldn't be the Saturday before that, so that we have a chance of having more people come? Somebody answer.
Well, this is your meeting.
Somebody.
Well, your suggestion is that you...
Yeah.
Well, you don't get a lot of people at the UD3 annual meeting on Monday.
Well, the motion is to hold the annual meeting on the Tuesday prior to town meeting day. Further discussion? Ruth?
I hear what you're saying, and I'm totally sympathetic, and we as school board members have gone around and around on this conversation many, many times in our own communities, wherever we are. And I think that Nobody has found a perfect solution to this, and it may be a good idea to start with the tradition that UD3 has established and see how that works, and you, the voters, can always change it for future years if the Tuesday night meeting doesn't work and you think Saturday might be better. I don't think there's a perfect solution to this question, but we've all struggled with it. So.
I understand that. My concern or reason for bringing it up was because this is in fact a totally new way of doing things, and many more people hopefully will come. That therefore, starting with a new way of doing it, you can change it again. It doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for some people Saturday is better and some people it's worse. So I'm not sure that there's necessarily any definitive data on either.
I move that we change it to be the Saturday before that. See whether anybody seconds it and votes.
So you move to amend the article or the motion to read that the annual meeting date would be the Saturday prior to town meeting, or so the second Saturday before town meeting. Okay. Is there a second to that proposed amendment? I don't hear one. Oh. Nick?
I was just wondering your thought process behind running this meeting. Can I have permission to speak?
Well, Nick, you look so mature. You're not a voter? Yeah.
Not yet.
Any objection to hearing from Nick?
Thank you very much.
Go for it.
All right, thank you. I was just curious as to your thought process of having this meeting on Saturday instead of a Tuesday. And I guess just like from my perspective, a lot of parents, although they, like a Saturday is kind of like the day where they don't have a lot of stuff going on because of work, so they want to spend time with their families. But I think on a Tuesday, or one of these like weekdays that we've traditionally done, a lot of the parents are in a routine where there is that block of free time, 9 to 5 after that, where they'll be able to, attend a meeting. Otherwise, on Saturday, where they may have family plans or other times where they don't want to, per se, go to a meeting like this. So I was just curious as to why you would think Saturday would be a more effective day to do it than a weekday.
Because very few people come to the Tuesday. I was trying to see if changing it would make it more likely that people would come.
Well, no, there hasn't been a second to the motion, but we're having discussion on the original motion, which is to set the date on the Tuesday prior to town meeting day. Yes?
Heather Seeley, I do believe that the Tuesday before town meeting day will be the fourth Tuesday of the month, and that will conflict with the town of Middlebury's select board meeting schedule. So, although I can't second the amendment for a Saturday, I would request that we consider an alternative day.
Further discussion, Gary?
I will second the amendment and bring it to a vote.
Second the original amendment.
Second
You want to second the motion for the Saturday amendment? All right. Well, there is a second to the proposed amendment, which is to hold the annual district meeting on the second Saturday prior to town meeting day. Is there further discussion on that proposed amendment? If not, all in favor of the proposed amendment signify by saying aye. Opposed, no? No. Noes appear to have it. Noes do have it, and the amendment is not agreed to. So we're back to the original motion, which is to have it on the Tuesday prior to town meeting day. Further discussion? Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor of approving the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and you've approved the motion establishing the date of the annual meeting on the Tuesday prior to town meeting day. Article 6. Do we have a report from the tellers? Listen to the result of your vote. Total votes cast were 43. That would mean 22 are required for a victory. Jane Beck had 13. Shane Keene had 18. Michelle Warren had 12. So we'll proceed to a second ballot and bring the ballot box forward. That's the way you like to handle it? Okay. Well, we'll all stretch and go out and go through the checklist again and receive a ballot. This is part of the fitness program here at our new district, right? We'll be in recess until after the ballots are cast. Warning tonight. And that would be proceeding to Article 6, which reads, to establish provisions for the payment of any expense incurred by the Unified Union District. What's your pleasure regarding Article 6? Any motion with respect to establishing provisions for the payment of expenses incurred by the district?
Explanation? Yeah. What are the provisions? How do we...
Well, first of all, we should have a motion.
I move to accept.
Lorraine.
I would move to establish provisions for the payment of any expenses incurred by the Unified Union District.
Well, let's get the motion on the table. Okay?
Second.
Lorraine moves that we establish provisions. I think the assumption is here that we have a motion that would identify those provisions, right?
Can you identify himself, please?
The second.
John Barstow, the moderator.
But I'm not sure the motion to establish provisions gets us where we want to be. So, would someone like to move that the school district comply with the provisions of 16 VSA Section 5, 63, 8, and 9 regarding the payment of expenses and the maintenance of financial accounts and comply with the policies and procedures of the Addison Central Supervisory Union regarding such matters?
So moved.
I would move that, but do I have to actually write that all down?
I'll give it to you. Maureen moves, John seconds. Now the question is, what does this mean?
So this is the this allows the board to pay bills, essentially. It's the statute 16 VSA 563. That's.
But it doesn't say how we.
So what it does.
Next one.
That's the next article. John?
Is there established bills that this board is going to have to pay in the ensuing year, or is this just a?
Clerk and treasurer.
There will be.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
There will be some bills that the new board will incur.
Ruth?
That's what I was going to say. I mean, mostly the cost of the work that the board has to do to create the new provisions for the district. And we have the $150,000 grant, so most of the funds will come from that. Our current boards and their budgets will still be in existence, so the work of running the schools are paid for by the budgets that you all approved in your districts and your towns this past March.
Further discussion on the motion under Article 6, which is to comply with the aforementioned statute and use the financial accounts, policies, and procedures of the ACSU regarding such matters. You ready for the question? If so, all in favor of approving the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and you've approved the motion. We'll make sure Lorraine gets the text. Article 7, to authorize the Unified Union District to borrow money pending receipt of payments from the State Education Fund by the issuance of its notes or orders payable not later than 1 year from date, provided, however, that the newly formed Unified Union District is authorized by Vermont statutes to borrow sufficient funds to meet pending obligations. What's your pleasure regarding Article 7?
Make a motion to accept Article 7.
John moves approval of the article, seconded. Discussion on Article 7.
I think Brian seconded. Brian. Yeah.
Well, I'm serious, that, I mean, that's a facetious way of asking, but I'm serious. What do you really think you're paying $1,500 in salary? What else are you spending money on?
Some portion of it will be professional services, for example, legal counsel, to properly establish the structure, the structure and corporate entity of the board itself, as well as moving forward with any required policy work that we have to do, that we have to vet through legal counsel. There also could be consulting costs on establishing this is a new venture, right? So there could also be some consultancy associated with it. Space fees, things. There are going to be any undertaking like this is going to have some costs associated with it. We're optimistic that that will be efficient.
No, I don't. I don't believe it will be higher than that.
If I can clarify, no. Can I? I think your question is about borrowing. The borrowing provision that's in this motion refers to allowing the district to borrow in anticipation of receiving the funds that are already approved for payment. So, for example, we would only be able to borrow against receipt of funds that we anticipate are coming in.
No, I understand they're essentially tacit institution notes, but can't. But my question is, if the money comes from the state, which is what I thought you said, on July 1st, or some approximate date close to that, do you actually anticipate that you would spend more than that and have to borrow?
So the purpose behind Article 7 is to carry on the powers of the current boards, which is to both bill Article 6 and Article 7 to borrow, to make payments and to borrow funds. So all of our boards are currently doing this. So this is an essential part of this board forming, is the ability to borrow, as well as Article 6.
But to answer your question, which is, do you think we're going to spend more than $150,000? I don't think we are at this time. We have to negotiate a new contract, and that's another big item. So, there's always a chance that we would, and then we would have to come back to the voters if we don't have this provision to allow us to borrow. But do we think we're going to spend more than $150,000? No, I don't think we do.
Other discussion on Article 7? Any other questions? If not, are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor of adopting Article 7 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and you've adopted Article 7. Article 8, to transact any other school business thought proper when met. Artful text, isn't it? Any discussion, announcements, or business? Ruth?
So the board members, we would like to have a discussion to establish a meeting schedule for the board for this summer. It's just for the board itself, but because we haven't been able to meet legally as a board, we haven't been able to discuss it. So I guess we would like permission from the voters to have this discussion and not have it as part of everybody discussing the board schedule, but have us allowed to do that, if you know what I mean. I don't know how to.
We haven't heard from the tellers, so go for it.
A motion to allow the board to discuss its summer 2016 meeting schedule.
Yeah, just go for it.
Oh, okay. Okay, this is awkward, but I sent all of you the results today of our doodle poll, and there were some dates that worked better than others. I have some paper copies of it. I don't have enough for all of you guys, sorry.
You'll warn the meetings. We'll find out when they are.
Sorry, I don't know when else we were supposed to do this.
We can share one, probably,
Yeah.
right, Jane?
There's some that you can share. I didn't do all 13, but
I can look. You can look.
Oh, you've got it there.
Oh,
Okay, I guess I get.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I've got my own.
So the meeting dates, Jason and Peter did go in and finalize their dates, so I have final dates for everybody. The 16th worked for everybody but 2 people, and that was the date that you had established for Jennifer. You had put it as a maybe. I don't know if
In the afternoon, my husband's working, so it depends on if I can find somebody for our kids.
But so the morning would work for you?
That was the original time frame, I think,
Yeah.
so I was making a commitment that I would be able to figure that out, and then when we were opening it more, it was getting more and more complicated. I'm sure I could make it work if I
Okay.
had to.
If need be.
That was what I think I put.
You did, yeah.
So that's the scheduled, that was the original scheduled date. Retreat, so it sounds like.
Saturday, the 16th.
It sounds like we should stick with that then.
Yeah, that's
We are
on,
confirmed with Middlebury College as well.
okay.
At Kirk alumni.
So the other dates that you had put out there to begin with were July 25th, and that did not rise to the top as a meeting date that worked for most of the board members. So if we could change that one, that would be helpful. The other one, August 8th, worked for everyone except for Suzanne and me, and Chris put it as a if need be.
Yeah, I'd have to Skype it.
You can think about it from the initial retreat, that of what kind of time frame we want to look at. If we want to select some dates for the summer, do we want to look at 2 weeks between meetings? Do we want to look closer?
What do you think?
Well, I'm thinking it would be nice, we definitely want to meet somewhere around, I think, the 29th, which Ruth had sent out as a date that worked, I think, for everyone. It's pretty much the day everyone's back.
Monday, August 29th was the only date that worked for all 13 of us.
Everybody,
And the ACSU Executive Committee last night set a meeting for that date to coincide with our board meeting. So they would meet first. Rick was at 5 o'clock, and then we could meet after that, and it worked for all 13.
What about something like early August, mid-August, late August?
There was the other August dates, there was July 19th worked for 10 of us. Tuesday, the 2nd of August, Monday, the 8th, we already established that, and Monday, August 22nd also. Then in addition, after Peter and Jason put their time in, Thursday, July 21st worked for 10 of us, and Tuesday, August 16th worked for 10 of us. So those could go on the upper possibilities.
What were those dates again, Chris, Ruth?
21, that one doesn't, 21, I think I said no to that.
Thursday, July 21st.
Yeah, I think I said no.
There were 10, I was
Yeah, that's only a 10.
looking for,
You had a
Question mark.
yeah, you had, I think, as an if need, well, this is exciting, I know.
It's a question mark.
I tried to put in no.
So you
I
were
was
no
doodled.
on that day?
Let me go back
Go
in,
in and
'cause,
re-end.
We're in August at this point.
I think August is better. Early August.
So we have August 8th and then
Early August,
Early August.
early August,
like August 1.
August 2nd, Tuesday, August 2nd, worked for 10 of us.
Evening.
And all of them were evenings. I had put in some morning times and afternoon times, and the vast majority of times it worked for evenings. So I think we should just assume.
Can we take that one then?
Yes.
August 2nd?
Yep.
Yeah.
Time? Are we setting the meetings at 6?
We do 7, 6, I mean,
Would the difference go 6:30?
6:30, that would be good, okay.
So 6:30 for the 29th and August 2nd?
No.
Wait.
No 29.
So we have July 16th, and that one starts at 8:30 a.m. Yeah, that's the one you can't do.
Yeah, I can't do it.
And Nick can't do it.
No.
And Jennifer will try to make it.
I will definitely make
Okay.
it. I was just, if there was an option of it changing, I figured I'd put myself in as a, I can make it if I have to.
Yep, okay. That was the if.
Right, I can make it, right?
And then,
The golf course is right there too, John.
Well, he's working at the snowball, that's the problem. We're on the opposite ends of the spectrum, but the kids, I think, can be with him in the morning.
so then there was the July 19th in the evening, if we wanted to do another July time, or July 21st.
Let's go to August.
I'm out that week.
You're out that whole week, okay.
I think
So
we're going
then
to-
August 2nd?
August 2nd is.
August 2nd. At 6:30 PM.
Yeah.
I can't be there August 2nd, so.
Okay. And then what about August 8th? Do you want to continue that one?
Well, what about,
Do we need
we don't,
four?
well, I thought we were talking about mid-August.
Yes.
Peter, I have question marks on you from,
Yeah, Peter went in and changed his dates, and I have them updated just on my summary. He did it
so what do you have on?
after I'd sent out.
What do you have on 11, 16, and 18?
How
of
about
August
16 or 18?
For Peter?
This, of August?
Yeah.
The
Yes.
16th, you were a yes for the August 16th, Peter?
Yes.
10 can do it that day. I'm trying to get
That
in.
works good.
That's good.
That's a 2-week
That's a
interval.
Tuesday.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
August 16th?
Yes.
There were two of us who couldn't do August 16th, and I'm trying to get in the poll to see it, but.
It's Suzanne and you.
You and Suzanne.
Suzanne and me. And then. And then the 29th, everybody can do. And then August 29th. So we're just doing those 3 dates?
Are we doing 6:30?
16th, 2nd, and August 29th?
August 16th.
August 16th.
August 16th.
Yeah.
4 dates.
August 16th, okay, okay.
So we have 4 meetings set, July 16th all day, August 2nd, 6:30, August 16th, 6:30, and August 29th, 6:30?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The one thing we have to do within 30 days of this meeting,
Find a new board member.
we have to appoint another board member for Middlebury. So we would have to do that on August, or on July 16th.
Someone doesn't like doodles.
Okay.
So post that tomorrow, but that was my thinking, is it would have to happen on that day.
And in order to run the meetings, we would also have to elect officers that day. Yeah, okay.
At the first meeting?
At the first meeting?
I mean, our plan was to do the election of officers after the first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that why we have a facilitator?
No, but I mean, at least at the end of that first meeting, so that the next meetings, we have officers.
Does it matter? I mean, is there a time
So-
constraint?
I mean, it just
Secretary
depends on
Holcomb,
how
what
we
do you,
structure that day, so.
what do you think? What?
Were you talking to?
I was asking Rebecca if she had a thought, because it's.
Yeah, I'm going to let you handle it.
Is it required to have officers elected at the first meeting?
No.
No.
What the
It's a
VSBA
retreat.
said, what they presented to 3 of us here on the charter committee as Peter and me was 2 half-day retreats and then elect officers after that. To give them more time to get to know each other. That was kind of what they presented as a model, but it wasn't the only model. No.
I think the statutes might require us to elect officers on the first meeting. Jason's looking them up right now.
Okay.
That,
Yeah, that's not what Nicole had mentioned.
I would go with August 2nd.
So would I.
VSBA said 1 meeting or 3?
Well, they said 2 retreat days without officers and then elect officers.
Yeah. I think that's-
That was one, like I said, that was one option.
That was one option, but it's certainly not been the way that all the districts have done it. And so I think that we can establish the way
So this,
we want to do
but this
it.
could be a discussion for that first meeting.
Yeah.
I guess part of the question is, can we appoint without having a chair?
Yeah, that's the thing. If we're actually doing the business of the board, we need officers to conduct the business of the board.
That would not be for the July 16th retreat.
She has to push the appointment to August.
Yes, yeah.
But the statutes require us to do it within 30 days. So that's why I'm saying we need officers in order to conduct the actual business of the board, which the first order would be to appoint a new member.
Can there be temporary officers for the board? We just, I mean, just like we sort of elected Jim at the beginning of the meeting to be our moderator for several minutes until we made him our, or do we have just provisional officers?
I mean, in practice at least, I don't know if there's something we could write or request that an extension of the 30-day period to a point. I know from the state level down, there are many appointments that happen after 60 days, after many days. Do you have any?
We can work this out with you.
Okay. Okay.
We can figure out what we have to do.
I would prefer to do a retreat.
Sounds like we could work around the 30 days.
And we can discuss at our first meeting
And I will post tomorrow that opening as well.
All right, we're done.
Okay. Well, a lot of organizational work to get the district up and running. We understand that. Returning to Article 3, here's the result of your vote. Total votes cast this time was 48, slightly more than we had a couple of people come in, and a few of you didn't vote the first time, which is your privilege. So 25 would be necessary for election. Jane Beck had 12, Shane Keene had 25, Michelle Warren had 11. Shane Keene has a majority of the votes cast and is the district treasurer for the ensuing year. Back to Article 8. One item I might suggest, we're here tonight because a lot of our friends and neighbors spent a great deal of time serving on the Charter Committee to formulate a plan to conduct hearings and discussions all around the district and to educate the voters about the decision that they were called upon to make. And I think it'd be appropriate as voters of the district if there were a motion to thank the Charter Committee for its outstanding work and express our appreciation for the hard work that they've done during the past several years, I guess. It's been a while. Is there such a motion? Moved and seconded? Any discussion? If not, all in favor of thanking the Charter Committee, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No? The ayes have it. We're very grateful. Any other business to come before the organizational meeting of our district?
Mr. Brown, I'd like to also recognize the superintendent of schools. I think without his leadership, that we would not be here today in this position. So thank you very much, Peter.
Any other business? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved, seconded by Mark. All in favor of adjourning the organizational meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the meeting stands adjourned.